Hey everyone, I'm Sabrina, a flow designer here at Fuga, and you're watching Creating Your First Fuga Flow. A flow is a set of instructions you give InDesign to help save time when doing repetitive tasks. Writing a flow is like writing a recipe for creating your final InDesign document. The flow I'll be showing you how to make will automatically build a set of rotated stars. Here's my first star, and here's the final flow, which will select the star, duplicate it, move it, and rotate it, and then do it over and over again. While creating a document like this wouldn't take very long to do in InDesign manually, learning how to do it through a flow is a good starting point for learning Fuga. And actually, once you're comfortable with flows, you'll find that building a flow like this is easier than doing it by hand. In this video, I'm going to go through everything you need to know to create this flow. I recommend watching the whole video all the way through and then creating the flow yourself using the supporting material underneath the video on our website. There I have screenshots of all the actions in the flow and all the other information you need to complete the project yourself. I also have other related content there as well that I won't be covering in this video, so be sure to check it out. Here I have a normal InDesign document, and now I'll create a star, just as I normally would in InDesign. Now I'll get my workspace set up for flow design by going to the window menu and opening the Fuga Hanger panel and the Fuga Workshop panel. This is the Fuga Hanger panel where flows are managed. I'll click the New button at the bottom here to create a flow and double-click the untitled flow text to name it something like My First Flow. As soon as the flow is created, it appears in the Fuga Workshop panel, which is where I'll be editing it later. Now that I've created a flow, I need to figure out what to put inside it. To do that, I'll think about how I'd create this document manually. Some of these steps might seem so intuitive that they're easy to look over. First, I'd select the star to tell Fuga that it's the one I want to work with. Then I'd duplicate the selected object, then move it, then rotate it, then I'd do it again with the new object, and so on. Just figuring out these steps is the most important part of designing a flow. And as long as it's done correctly, it's easy to know which actions to insert into the flow itself. So, to make these steps into a flow, I'll go to the Fuga Workshop panel. This area here on the left side is the flow itself, which is currently empty except for this begin action. This begin action resides at the start of every flow and simply serves as a starting point. To the right of the flow are the actions categories menus. Each category contains a list of actions. It's easy to find actions since they're grouped by what they work with. For example, the select, duplicate, and move actions are all under the object menu since they work with objects. From these menus, actions can be inserted into the flow by clicking on them. Once they're in the flow, they can be moved around easily by dragging them. And you can remove them by clicking on the X that appears on the right-hand side of the action when it's selected. For this tutorial, I'll be working with an object, so I'll be using actions from the object category. The first step I wanted to do was to select the star, so I'll click on the Select action. The action's inserted into the flow. This area here is the action's parameters, where you can specify more information about what the action should do. But for now, I'm going to leave everything on their defaults. For this action, when you leave everything like this, it tells Fuga to select all the objects on the page. And since the only object on our page is the star, this works for now. If you want to know more about this action later, check out the article on selection and naming. The next step we want to take is to duplicate the star. So I'll click on the duplicate action from the object menu, and I'll leave these parameters on their defaults as well. At this point, I've already kind of created a flow, and although it doesn't do very much, I'll go ahead and test it out. It's actually not a bad idea to play or step through the flow after you insert a few new actions, just to make sure everything's working. So, to test my duplicate actions, I'll use the Play Controls button on the left side of the Workshop panel. Here there are 3 different buttons. The Play button, which moves through all the actions slowly so you can see what's going on at each one. The Step button, which moves one action forward each time you click it and also pauses the flow while it's playing. And the Stop button, which stops the flow and goes back to the begin action. Now, I'll click the Step button in the middle here once. The first step initialized the flow by performing the begin action and moved to the select action. When I click the Step button again, the select action is performed. This little red dot on the left side of the flow is indicating what step the flow is going to do next. As you can see, my star is selected, so the select action worked. and the next action the flow will perform is a duplicate action. You might have also noticed that the action's parameters are grayed out right now, and I can't insert actions into the flow. This is because you can't edit a flow while Fuga is performing it. If I wanted to edit something here, I'd have to stop the flow first. For now, I'll keep stepping through it though. When I pressed the step button again, the duplicate action was performed, and the dot moved back to the begin action. Now, if I can move the top star, I can see that there's another one under it, so my duplicate action worked. Now that I can see it's working, I'll delete the extra star so I don't have extra objects on the page. The next step is to move the object. I'll go back to the flow and make sure that the duplicate action is highlighted in blue, since Fuga puts new actions in under the highlighted one. Now, I'll go to the Object Category menu and select the Move action and put 5 for the X value to move the star by 5 units. Fuga automatically uses the units from the document ruler, so I don't need to put those. My ruler is in picas, so it'll be moving 5 picas, but if your rulers are in different units, you might want to put something else here. Now, I'll go back to the Object menu and select the Rotate action from the middle of the list. And I'll put -10 here for the angle, and put the anchor in the center. This will tell Fuga to rotate the object -10 degrees around its center. Now I'll test out the flow again by clicking the play button. A new star was created, moved 5 units, and rotated -10 degrees. Okay, so now I'll copy the actions in the flow to make multiple stars. To do this, I'll simply click on the first action I want to duplicate. Press Shift and click the last action I want to duplicate. Then I'll Command click and drag the actions to where I want them. And then do that again a few more times. I didn't duplicate the Select action, since Fuga automatically selects the new star when it's created. Now, before I test out the flow again, I'll save the file. Saving a file before a flow is performed is a good habit to get into, so you can revert the file back to how it was before, instead of having to undo or delete what the flow did. Okay, so to test out the actions, I'll click the play button here once. Now that I can see that it's working, I'll go ahead and revert the file. The play button is nice if you want to see what each action is doing, but if you want to get through the flow even faster, you can perform it in run mode. To run the flow, I'll click on this button here at the bottom of the Fuga Hanger panel, and the flow is performed at full speed. Now, I'll go ahead and revert the file again. At this point, maybe you're thinking that there should be a better way to perform the same actions multiple times than repeating the actions over and over again. There definitely is. It's called a loop, and I'll be covering it more in a later tutorial, but I'll run through it quickly in this one. So, to do this through a loop, first I'll delete all the repetitions of the original actions from the flow. Now, I'll select the Flow Actions category and click on the Loop action. I'll drag the original actions except for my Select action in between the Loop action and the Insert action here placeholder. Now, I'll select the Loop action from the flow to edit its parameters. I'll leave the loop type on numeric, leave the From field on 1, but for the To field, I'm going to change this to 7 to repeat the action 7 times, and for Step, I'll leave it at 1. Now I'll save the file and click the play button. Okay, so that's it everyone. Like I said in the beginning, be sure to check out the reference I have posted along with this video when you're wondering about something. Hope this tutorial was helpful, and thanks for watching.